Hi, my name is Annie. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about all of the books I read in June. You may be asking yourself, Annie, what the heck is your channel about? I don't know. Okay, it's about a little bit of everything. I talk about body transformations. I talk about treating my metabolic disease, PCOS, and type 2 diabetes with medication. I talk about books. I talk about inspirational, spiritual things, and sometimes I vlog my chickens. Today we're going to talk about books because the month of June for me was very productive with my reading. I'm not entirely sure how people read so many books a month, but for me this month I read 6, and I feel like that was kind of a lot, especially since I wasn't exactly trying to hit a certain goal. I was just trying to fall back in love with reading again. And for me, that's kind of difficult because I'm a mood reader, so I really have to want to read the book that I am considering reading. But I figured we'd go over all of the books that I read in June and my rating for them so that you could decide if there's something that you want to add to your TBR. While I have you here, if you don't mind sharing some of your favorite titles in the comments so that I can buff up my TBR. I'm working on a TBR for July. Ricky's very interested in reading as well. He can't wait to hear about these books. Come sit down. I'm gonna get you. Okay. He's not sure he wants to be on camera. Anyway, if you could leave some of your favorites in the comments below, I'd really like to know because I want to beef up my TBR for July, and then I am going to post a video with that as well. And if you want to catch that video, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you know every single time I post. So without further ado, here are the 6 books I read in June. The first book I'm going to talk about I am including, even though I read it at the end of May, but I feel like I haven't talked enough about it, so I want to give it its own spotlight here. That is the book Less by Andrew Sean Greer. This is a national bestseller. It's a book that won a Pulitzer Prize, and this was a book that I was told to read if I was in a reading slump because it would help me get out of it, and they are right. This book follows Arthur Less, who is an author. The author receives an invitation from his ex-boyfriend to his ex-boyfriend's wedding, and it sends him into a bit of a spiral. Instead of going to the wedding, facing his feelings, and watching his ex-lover get married, he decides he's going to accept every single literary invitation he's been given recently, go travel across the world talking about his books. This book follows him from Mexico to Italy to Paris and kind of chronicles his adventures while he's also resolving these feelings he's had about his past relationships, not only with his ex-boyfriend, but lovers of the past as well. And I think it's such a great story because at first, to me, honestly, Arthur was a bit insufferable, but as the book developed, his character development was so good that you just can't help but fall in love with him. And I think it's just such a great narrative about how love exists over the timeline of your life, whether it's young love to old love, regrets in love, happiness in love, and all of the things that have to do with what it means to love someone. And I just really enjoyed having all of those different perspectives while I read this novel. And the ending was just really perfect. At the time I read this book, I gave this book a 4 stars, but I think it was just my mood mostly because it was truly such a good story, such good character development, and it was well written. So I guess technically we'll rate it out of 5. The next book I read in June was one I highly recommend reading for the summer, especially if you're trying to get out of a reading slump. And that was the book Bad Summer People by Emma Rosenblum. This book was so good. If you're looking for a summer read that has a little bit of thriller, a little bit of love, a little bit of interesting drama, this is the book for you. This book follows several affluent families who travel to Fire Island in the summertime. There's so many great elements to it, and I really love the way the characters were written. The plot was fast-paced enough to keep you going. This is one of those books that ropes you in from the first few pages. You immediately find out that there's been some sort of foul play on the island. I really like this book because it actually started with the end in the beginning, and then you have to work your way through it to figure out what exactly happened on this island during the summertime. So amongst a lot of different tales between different families and lots of drama and infidelity and backstabbing and eventually murder, you can't go wrong with reading this book. It was an easy 5 stars for me. Like I said, I am a mood reader, and after finishing Bad Summer People, I kind of wanted something a little bit more in line with fantasy, but not super fantastical, and a little bit more paranormal. I chose the book We All Fall Down by Natalie D. Richards. This book is following Theo and Paige, who are childhood friends, who are headed out for the night to a party under the bridge. Paige has been obsessed with Theo and has a crush on him ever since they met, but unfortunately that's just not going to work out, so she's trying to move on while she's at this party, and she's been flirting with a new dude. At the party, she's flirting with a new guy, they're hanging out, things seem to be going fairly well, but unfortunately a fight breaks out and some pretty tragic things occur. It really ends up causing a huge rift in the relationship between Theo and Paige, and this will end up haunting them quite literally for years to come. So it basically follows the storyline from this tragic event throughout how they heal from it. And I thought it was just a really interesting take, but there are some paranormal elements to it. And while I was reading it, there were times where I was having trouble suspending my disbelief in order to fully engage in the story. And so that was more of a me issue than a book issue. But overall, I felt like it was a really good story. There were some fast-paced moments. There were moments where I could truly envelop myself in the feelings of the characters, which I also really enjoy. There's nothing better than having like a true emotional connection to the book. And I did find myself having that with the characters at different points, but it was hard for me to sustain. But overall, I rated this book 4 stars. I would definitely say if you're into something a little paranormal with a little bit of relationship drama, this might be the book for you. After reading We All Fall Down, I decided maybe paranormal wasn't the vibe for me right now. So I headed back to more of a literary fiction, and I chose to read the book Big Swiss by Jen Bagan. I heard so many positive things about this book, so my hype level was very high whenever I started reading it. So this book follows Greta, who is a scribe for a sex therapist named Om. Well, he's not really named Om, but he goes by Om, so his name's Om. Anyway, that's irrelevant. The point is, it's following Greta, and she's transcribing all of Om's sessions for him. And as she's transcribing the sessions, she starts to become really infatuated with one of his clients, who she nicknames Big Swiss because the client is from Switzerland. Keep in mind that Greta is in a very small town, and so all of these clients that Greta is transcribing things about just happen to be out and about in the town. Keep in mind this, Greta is hearing intimate details of these clients' lives, including Big Swiss's. So she knows who they are, but they have no idea who she is. Now, she can't see them, so she doesn't know what they look like, but she does know their voices. And what Greta doesn't realize is that soon enough, she's going to be at the local dog park, and guess whose voice she's going to hear? That's right, no other than Big Swiss. This is going to tell you the tale of how Greta proceeds after she sees one of the clients in real life. Like I said, when I started reading this book, I was very hyped up about it, and at first, it was very alluring to me. Now, I will say this is a highly graphic novel, and there are trigger warnings associated with it, so make sure you look them up before you proceed in reading this book. There is a lot of tragedy, there is a lot of detail. I would definitely say that this is for a more mature audience. I found the writing style to be great. I thought the premise of the book was really wonderful. For the most part, my attention span was held throughout the whole thing. I found myself feeling the push and pull that Greta was feeling throughout the novel as well. Overall, I did like this novel, but for me personally, it was a bit slower paced than I wanted it to be, so I gave it a 3 stars. I think at this part in the month, I was starting to rate books under a more harsh microscope, and one of the biggest things for me was if I wouldn't read the book again, I'm probably only going to give it 3 stars. And so that's what happened here with Big Swiss. I think it's a great book. I don't think you should check it out. I liked everything, but I don't feel like I need to go back to it time and time again. After reading the heaviness that was Big Swiss, I really felt like I needed to read another book that was a bit lighter, so I chose to read the book Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson. This was easily one of my favorite books. This book follows the very wealthy Stockton family. It's written in a multiple POV style. All of the people it's following with ties to this family have very different positions in life. It talks about their spouses, some who are affluent, some who are more middle class. It talks about their trials and tribulations, trying to navigate the world. It talks a lot about their interpersonal relationships, their interfamily relationships, and how they kind of navigate the world as a more affluent family. When I say affluent, I mean millions and millions of dollars. This book is very witty. This is more of an escapist novel, so if you're someone who has a lot of family drama, this may not exactly be one that you want to partake in because you probably have enough drama in your personal life, but if you're looking to get lost in someone else's drama for once, then this is the book for you. I thought it was well paced, I thought it was very funny, it made me laugh, it made me cry, it had a lot of elements of like real life to it, even though these characters seem to be unrelatable. The way that they're written and the way that their feelings are chronicled really make them more relatable. And so I just truly love this book, and I gave it a full 5 stars. After reading Pineapple Street on TikTok and on Instagram, I asked you help me choose between reading Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez and Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hildebrand. And I found out that Abby Jimenez, who I've never read before's book, is one in a series, although I have mixed reviews. Like, some people say you can read it as a standalone, some people say you need to read it as part of the series. So I decided to get the full effect of the books. I would wait to read it in a series, so I decided to go with The Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hilderbrand. This is the first book I had ever read by Ellen Hilderbrand. She is known as the queen of beach reads, and with it being summertime, I felt like that was just super appropriate. This book follows Lisbeth Keaton, who's recently broken up with her long-term boyfriend because he was found cheating on her, and she actually gets hired to be the general manager of the Hotel Nantucket. Now, the hotel has a long history, which includes multiple owners and multiple failures at actually becoming a good hotel. But a very wealthy man named Xavier buys it, and he's hired Lisbeth to bring it back to life, run it, and make it just an amazing hotel, mostly because he wants to impress someone named Shelley Carpenter. Shelley Carpenter is a blogger who goes around and reviews the hotels and rates them on a key scale from 1 to 5, 5 being the best. No one's ever gotten a 5-star key rating, so Xavier's mission is to get that 5-star, and he hires Lisbeth to help him do it. Chronicles their first summer working at Hotel Nantucket. Oh, and also, did I mention that there's a ghost in the Hotel Nantucket? It has mystery, it has a little bit of paranormal activity, it has love. It basically has just a little bit of everything. I thought it was a really great novel. I really enjoyed reading it. I'm excited to read something else by Ellen Hilderbrand, so if you have any suggestions on what book to read by her next, please leave it in the comments and I will check it out. Book that I read in June, everybody has already read, and I know I'm late to the game. I've been waiting for it to be available on Libby. Reading is an expensive hobby, and so I actually get all of my books off of Libby or Kindle Unlimited. Financially, it's just what makes sense for me right now. So I don't have a lot of room in my house for storage of books. I wish I did. I wish I could have one of those really cool libraries or shelves behind me with a million books, but that's just not my life for now, and I'm a Kindle girl through and through, so that's where we're at. I read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. It has been a hot minute since I dived back into the fantasy arena, and I was so ready. This book follows Violet Sorrengail, who's meant to live her life in the scribe quadrant, and she was even being trained by her father, who is now deceased, to be a scribe. But her mother, who is the general, has come to her and said, no honey, you're gonna go to the Writer's Quadrant and you better be ready for it. The Writer's Quadrant is pretty intimidating and there's a lot of chance for demise there, and so Violet is not prepared. She's weak, she is small, and if I'm being honest, I feel like she has a connective tissue disorder because she gets hurt all of the time. Anyway, in the Writer's Quadrant, the goal is to survive and bond with a dragon. This book follows Violet through her adventures, and if you want to know what happens to her, you'll have to read the book. But it was fast-paced, it was engaging. I read it in 2 days, and it's a longer book, so that was pretty intense for me. This is an enemies to lovers story, basically like Hunger Games and Divergent, but with dragons, and it is so good. I do have Iron Flame, which is the second book in my Libby hold, so hopefully it will come available soon, because based on the way this one ended, I have got to know how the next one goes. I thought this book was amazing. I love it so much. It's easily my favorite book I've read this year. I gave it a 5 stars. Let me know if you read it or if you've read something similar or you have some suggestions for me. This brings us to our very last book that I read this month. Because I was just in the clouds over Fourth Wing and ready to continue this fantasy feeling while I wait on Iron Flame to become available, I decided to choose one of the books I got for free on Stuff Your Kindle Day, and I read A New Witch on the Block by Louisa West. This book follows Rosie, who's on the run from her ex-husband Randy with her daughter Maggie. Randy has a notorious past for being violent towards them. He's also a member of a biker gang, a close-knit group of people who have been trying to keep Maggie and Rosie at home. Anyway, Rosie and Maggie make a run for it and head to a little town, and it talks about how they set up their life there. And they seem to be doing okay, except suddenly a drunk Irishman shows up on their front porch, claiming that he's the king of witches and that Rosie is his queen. Chronicles their experience together as they try to keep Rosie and Maggie safe from Randy, and Rosie and Maggie try to lead a more normal life. This is the first book in a series. It's a short read at 250 pages. It does have some paranormal elements. While I do like the premise of this book, I just felt like for me personally, this wasn't my favorite writing style. I would have really liked to see more description in the writing style and a bit more character development. I truly didn't feel like I had a deep connection to the characters, which was disappointing. And I'm not sure if this improves as the series moves forward, so if you've read the series, let me know. For me personally, it was a 3-star rating, and unless somebody tells me differently, I probably won't be returning back to the series. Although it was a quick read and it was a nice palate cleanser, it just wasn't one of my favorites. So that concludes all of the books that I read in June. I am looking to establish my July TBR, which is going to be kind of interesting because, like I said, I'm a mood reader and I'm also at the mercy of Libby. I'm really going to try to focus on finding some Kindle Unlimited reads and some Libby reads, and hopefully between the two we'll get somewhere. Hopefully between the two we can establish a really good TBR. Let me know what's on your TBR. I want your top 3 reads, please. If you're still here, please give me a like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And I can't wait to be back soon to tell you all about my July TBR. Love you. Say it back.